What if everything we think we know about ancient technology is just the tip of the iceberg? Picture this: buried beneath layers of earth and centuries of silence lie inventions so advanced, so ahead of their time, that they were deliberately hidden away. These weren't just simple tools or forgotten trinkets. They were groundbreaking devices, some so revolutionary that they threatened the very order of the societies that created them. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 24 of these extraordinary artifacts, each one a testament to human ingenuity, and each one lost to history because the world simply wasn't ready for them. Think about the sheer brilliance it took to craft machines that mimicked the stars, or mechanisms that predicted celestial events with pinpoint accuracy, thousands of years before modern science caught up. These weren't accidents, they were deliberate creations born from minds that saw further than their time allowed. Yet, for reasons we're only beginning to understand, these marvels were buried, dismantled, or erased from records. Was it fear, the unsettling power they held, or perhaps the realization that some knowledge is too dangerous to leave unchecked? The answers are as mysterious as the devices themselves. This isn't just a journey through forgotten history, it's a revelation. Every artifact we uncover cracks open a new question about who we were and who we could have been. From ancient engineers who defied the limits of their era to rulers who ordered these inventions hidden, the stories behind these devices are as compelling as the technology itself. So settle in, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about the past. These aren't just relics, they're proof that history's greatest mysteries are still waiting to be solved. The Antikythera Mechanism isn't just an artifact, it's a time capsule of genius. Found in the wreckage of a 2,000-year-old ship off the coast of Greece, this intricate bronze device was so far ahead of its era that historians once refused to believe it was real. Gears within gears, precisely calibrated to mirror the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. It could predict eclipses down to the hour and even track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. This wasn't just a tool, it was a masterpiece of engineering, a celestial calculator that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. But here's the real mystery. Why did such a revolutionary invention vanish from history? The answer might lie in the shadows of ancient power. Imagine a world where knowledge was currency, where understanding the heavens meant influence over empires. The Antikythera Mechanism didn't just tell time, it revealed the secrets of the cosmos, and that kind of power was dangerous. Some scholars believe it was deliberately suppressed, its creators silenced by rulers who feared what might happen if the stars became predictable to the masses. Others speculate that the knowledge required to build it was simply too rare, lost when its inventors died without passing on their techniques. What's chilling is how close we came to never knowing it existed at all. The mechanism spent centuries corroding underwater, its purpose forgotten until modern technology could finally decipher its secrets. And that raises an unsettling question. How many other breakthroughs like this were buried, dismantled, or erased because they threatened the status quo? The Antikythera Mechanism is a reminder that history isn't just about what survived, it's about what didn't. And sometimes the most advanced ideas are the ones we're not meant to find. Buried in the dusty archives of the National Museum of Iraq sits a humble clay jar, one that could rewrite our understanding of ancient innovation. Known as the Baghdad Battery, this unassuming artifact, dating back nearly 2,000 years, contains a copper cylinder and an iron rod, sealed inside with traces of an acidic substance like vinegar or wine. Put these pieces together, and you've got the basic components of a primitive electrical cell. That's right, long before Benjamin Franklin's kite or Alessandro Volta's first modern battery, someone in Mesopotamia might have been harnessing electricity. The implications are staggering. Some researchers believe these jars were used for electroplating, coating objects in thin layers of gold or silver using electrical currents. Ancient artisans could have created dazzling jewelry or religious artifacts with this technique, giving their work an otherworldly sheen. Others propose the battery had medical applications, perhaps delivering mild shocks to relieve pain, a practice eerily similar to modern electrotherapy. But here's the puzzle. If this technology existed, why didn't it spread? Why wasn't it refined into something more powerful, more widespread? The answer might lie in who controlled knowledge and why. Electricity in the ancient world wouldn't have been just a tool. It would have been a source of power, both literal and symbolic. Imagine a priest class using these devices to create miracles, making statues gleam or administering divine healing. Such secrets would have been closely guarded, limited to a select few to maintain authority. And when those in power fell, or when empires crumbled, the knowledge could have been buried, literally, to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. What's haunting is how fragile progress can be. The Baghdad Battery wasn't a fluke. Experiments with replicas prove it works. Yet, like the Antikythera Mechanism, it vanished from history, leaving no trail. Was it deliberately suppressed, or did the sheer rarity of the materials and expertise needed doom it to obscurity? Either way, it's a stark reminder that innovation isn't inevitable. Sometimes the brightest ideas are snuffed out not because they failed, but because the world wasn't ready to handle them. Deep in the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, a series of carvings flicker with mystery. Etched into the stone walls, you'll find something that looks startlingly modern, a bulb-like object with what appears to be a coiled filament inside, connected to a cable that snakes toward a box held by a kneeling figure. To the untrained eye, it could pass for an ancient blueprint of an electric light. Known as the Denderer Light, these carvings have sparked debates for decades. Were the Egyptians experimenting with artificial illumination over 2,000 years ago? The details are eerily precise. The so-called bulb resembles a giant version of early incandescent lights, with a wavy line inside that mirrors the filament design Edison would later patent in the 19th century. The cable seems to attach to something resembling a battery or power source, complete with what looks like insulating standoffs. Proponents of the theory point to the absence of soot in certain underground chambers of Egyptian temples, places where torches or oil lamps would have left traces. Could these spaces have been lit by something far more advanced? But here's where the story twists. Mainstream Egyptologists argue these carvings likely depict something symbolic, perhaps a lotus flower spawning a snake, a motif tied to creation myths. The filament might represent a serpent emerging from its bulb-like blossom, a common spiritual motif. Yet even this explanation doesn't fully account for the precision of the design or the absence of similar imagery elsewhere. If it was purely symbolic, why does it look so functionally specific? And why does it appear in just one temple, isolated from other mythological art? The real intrigue lies in what we don't find. No physical remnants of such devices have ever been uncovered, no bulbs, no wiring, no batteries. This absence fuels the theory that if the technology existed, it was deliberately scrubbed from the record. Imagine a priesthood guarding the secret of artificial light, using it to stage divine appearances in temple darkness. Such power would have been revolutionary and dangerous. If knowledge of this technology leaked, it could undermine the authority of those who claimed their miracles came from the gods. What's haunting is how easily a single innovation could vanish. Unlike the Antikythera Mechanism or the Baghdad Battery, the Denderer Light leaves no physical trace, just a tantalizing carving open to interpretation? Was it a misunderstood symbol or a glimpse of lost science? Either way, it forces us to ask how many other breakthroughs left only whispers behind. Sometimes the most compelling evidence isn't what we find, it's what's missing. The Voinish Manuscript isn't just a book, it's a riddle wrapped in vellum, locked behind an alphabet no one alive can read. Discovered in the early 20th century, this bizarre text, filled with curling, plant-like script and illustrations of flora that don't match any known species, has defied every attempt at translation. Its pages brim with celestial diagrams that don't align with any recognized astronomical system, and its intricate, almost clinical drawings of women bathing in strange green liquid only deepen the enigma. This isn't just a forgotten language, it's a deliberate puzzle, crafted with cryptographic sophistication that suggests its creators didn't want it understood. What makes the manuscript so unsettling is the precision behind its chaos. Modern codebreakers, including teams from the CIA and top universities, have thrown everything at it, from frequency analysis to artificial intelligence. Yet the text resists every approach, its patterns just coherent enough to hint at meaning but never enough to crack. Some theories suggest it's an elaborate hoax, but the consistency of the script across hundreds of pages, written over what experts believe was years, makes that unlikely. Others propose it's a lost scientific or alchemical text, its knowledge so valuable or dangerous that it was encoded to protect it. Then there are the illustrations. Plants with bulbous roots and spiraling stems, some resembling species from entirely different continents, as if the author had access to a global botanical archive centuries before such travel was possible. The astrological charts feature unfamiliar constellations, suggesting either a fictional cosmology or a system of knowledge so niche it's been erased from history. And those haunting bathing scenes, were they medical diagrams, alchemical rituals, or something even more esoteric? The most compelling clue might be what's missing. Unlike other medieval manuscripts, there are no marginal notes, no scribbled corrections, no signs of use. It's as if the book was created in isolation, never meant to be read by anyone but its author. Was it a personal cipher, a mad genius's private notes, or was it buried because its contents were too explosive for its time? The Voinish Manuscript doesn't just hide its secrets, it taunts us with them. Every generation brings new tools to decode it, and every generation fails. Maybe some knowledge isn't lost, maybe it's just waiting. Imagine a weapon so terrifying that enemy ships would burst into unstoppable flames, burning even on water, a liquid fire that clung to flesh and could not be extinguished by any means known to medieval armies. This was Greek fire, the Byzantines' most closely guarded secret and one of history's most feared weapons. First deployed in the 7th century, it turned the tide of battles, saving Constantinople from sieges that should have been unwinnable. The mere sight of it struck panic into invaders as flames roared across the sea, consuming entire fleets in minutes. Yet despite its legendary power, the exact formula vanished from history, leaving behind only whispers and speculation. What made Greek fire so devastating wasn't just its intensity, it was its unpredictability. Historical accounts describe it as a liquid spray, ignited upon contact with air or water, capable of clinging to surfaces like napalm. Some sources suggest it contained quicklime, which reacts violently with water, explaining why dousing the flames only made them worse. Others point to petroleum or naphtha, substances known to the ancient world but never weaponized with such precision. The Byzantines didn't just throw fire, they engineered it, projecting it through pressurized tubes mounted on ships, an early form of flamethrower that felt like sorcery to those facing it. But here's the real mystery. Why did such a revolutionary weapon disappear? The answer may lie in the very secrecy that made it so effective. Only a handful of artisans and generals knew the formula, and they guarded it with obsessive caution. Emperors reportedly confined the chemists who mastered it to palace workshops, ensuring the knowledge never spread. Some historians believe the secret died with those few custodians, lost when political upheavals or invasions disrupted their line of succession. Others argue it was deliberately buried, deemed too destructive to risk falling into rival hands. The legacy of Greek fire isn't just about what was lost, it's a warning. Even 1,000 years ago, rulers understood the double-edged nature of advanced technology. A weapon that could save an empire could also doom it if enemies reversed its power. In an age without international treaties or ethical guidelines, suppression might have been the only way to prevent catastrophe. What's chilling is how familiar that dilemma feels today. The Byzantines didn't just lose a recipe, they grappled with the same questions we face about controlling inventions that could change or end the world. And so Greek fire remains a ghost in the historical record, its absence as telling as its presence. We're left with fragments, accounts of its horror, sketches of its mechanisms, but no way to recreate its full might. Perhaps that's for the best. Some secrets, it seems, are meant to stay buried. In the year 138, a mysterious bronze vessel in the Chinese imperial court suddenly came to life. A dragon's head perched at its rim dropped a bronze ball into the waiting mouth of a toad below, silent, precise, and impossible to ignore. This was no decorative ornament. It was Janggang's Seismoscope, an invention that had just detected an earthquake hundreds of miles away, long before the tremors reached the capital. To the officials gathered around, it must have seemed like magic. But this was science advanced, deliberate, and so accurate that modern recreations have confirmed its effectiveness. How could a 2,000-year-old device rival today's seismic technology? And why did something so revolutionary vanish from history for over a millennium? The genius of the seismoscope lay in its simplicity. 8 dragons, each representing a compass direction, coiled around the barrel-shaped vessel. Inside, an inverted pendulum swayed with the slightest tremor, triggering a mechanism that released a single ball from the dragon facing the quake's epicenter. No electricity, no complex machinery, just physics harnessed with such elegance that it could pinpoint distant earthquakes better than many medieval European methods centuries later. Contemporary accounts claim it even detected quakes too faint for people to feel, a feat modern seismographs only achieved in the 20th century. So why wasn't this breakthrough celebrated and refined? The answer might lurk in the shadows of ancient power. In imperial China, natural disasters weren't just tragedies, they were political dynamite. Earthquakes were seen as heavenly signs, often interpreted as divine disapproval of a ruler's reign. A device that could predict or even confirm these events threatened the emperor's authority. Imagine the chaos if local officials could independently verify quakes, undermining the court's control over disaster narratives. Some historians suggest the seismoscope's knowledge was deliberately restricted to the imperial inner circle, its designs never widely shared. Others speculate that later dynasties, wary of its implications, allowed the technology to fade into obscurity. What's haunting is how close we came to losing it entirely. Janggang's original device didn't survive, and detailed descriptions were scattered across fragmented texts. For centuries, scholars debated whether it even worked until 2003, when a team of scientists built a replica using the ancient specifications. The result, it detected simulated earthquakes with startling accuracy, proving the design wasn't just theoretical. This wasn't a lucky guess, it was engineering centuries ahead of its time. The Seismoscope's disappearance raises a darker question. How many other breakthroughs were sidelined because they disrupted those in power? History isn't just shaped by what we invent, it's shaped by what we're allowed to remember. Janggang's device didn't fail. It was too successful for its own good, and that might be the most unsettling lesson of all. Buried in the ruins of an ancient Minoan palace on the island of Crete lies one of archaeology's most stubborn puzzles, the Feisto's disc. This palm-sized clay tablet, dating back over 3,000 years, is covered in 45 distinct symbols, stamped in a precise spiral that coils inward like a serpent swallowing its own tail. From dancing figures to shields, from birds to bewildering geometric shapes, each symbol was pressed into the clay with individual stamps, making this the earliest known example of movable type printing, millennia before Gutenberg. Yet despite over a century of study, no one has ever deciphered its message. Was this a sacred hymn, a royal proclamation, or something far more enigmatic? What makes the disc so frustrating and fascinating is its isolation. Unlike the Rosetta Stone, which provided a key to unlock Egyptian hieroglyphs by comparing them to Greek, the Feisto's disc stands alone. No other artifact bears these symbols, and no accompanying text explains their meaning. Linguists have tried everything, matching the symbols to known languages, analyzing their frequency like a cryptographer, even using AI to detect hidden patterns. But the disc resists all interpretation, its symbols arranged in a way that feels deliberate yet defies every known linguistic structure. Some researchers insist it must be a form of writing, while others argue it could be a mnemonic device, a visual aid for reciting oral traditions, never meant to be read in the conventional sense. Then there's the question of its creation. The precision of the stamped symbols suggests a level of technological sophistication rare for its time. Whoever made this disc didn't carve the symbols by hand. They crafted reusable stamps, implying a system meant for replication. Was this part of a larger archive with other discs lost to time? Or was it a singular artifact, perhaps a ceremonial object with a purpose we can't begin to guess? The Minoans left behind elaborate frescoes and intricate pottery, but nothing else like this. It's as if the disc was deliberately severed from its cultural context, a message without a key. The most tantalizing theory is also the most unsettling. What if the symbols weren't meant to be understood by outsiders at all? Ancient mystery cults often used coded imagery to shield sacred knowledge from the uninitiated. The spiral pattern winding inward could symbolize a journey, a ritual where each symbol represented a step toward enlightenment, comprehensible only to those trained in its secrets. If that's true, the Feisto's disc isn't just a linguistic puzzle. It's a locked door to a belief system we may never reconstruct. And so the disc sits in silence, its symbols gleaming under museum lights, whispering a language no living person hears. It's a reminder that some ancient inventions weren't just lost, they were designed to stay that way. After all, the most powerful secrets aren't the ones we forget. They're the ones we're never meant to find. Hidden among the treasures of the Assyrian city of Nimrod, buried beneath the dust of empires, lies a small, unassuming object that shouldn't exist, the Nimrod Lens. This 3,000-year-old piece of polished rock crystal, roughly the size of a modern magnifying glass, was discovered in 1850 alongside glass and ivory artifacts, dismissed at first as mere decoration. But when researchers took a closer look, they realized something extraordinary. The lens was ground into an oval shape with a focal point precise enough to concentrate sunlight or magnify small objects. This wasn't just a trinket, it was a carefully crafted optical device, one that predates the earliest known telescopes and microscopes by millennia. The implications are staggering. If the Assyrians were experimenting with lenses, even crudely, Why didn't this knowledge spark a revolution in optics? Unlike the Baghdad Battery or the Antikythera Mechanism, which required rare materials or complex engineering, the principles behind the Nimrod Lens could have been replicated with relative ease. Glassmaking was already known in the ancient world, and the lens itself was made from quartz, a material abundant in the region. So why did this technology stall? The answer might lie in who controlled it and why. Imagine a society where vision itself was power. Assyrian rulers were master propagandists, using every tool at their disposal to project invincibility. A lens could have been employed to start ceremonial fires, mimicking divine intervention, or to inspect sacred texts with a level of detail that seemed supernatural. In the wrong hands, such a device might have exposed the tricks behind priestly miracles or enabled forgers to replicate official seals with dangerous precision. Knowledge this disruptive wouldn't just fade away, it would be actively suppressed. But there's another possibility. The lens wasn't meant for magnification at all. Some scholars argue it was a decorative inlay, its optical properties accidental. Yet this ignores the precision of its grinding, far more labor-intensive than necessary for mere ornamentation. Even more compelling are the Assyrians' own records. They documented celestial events with uncanny accuracy, tracking planetary movements that would be nearly impossible to observe with the naked eye alone. Could the lens have been part of a larger instrument, a primitive telescope lost to time? The silence surrounding the Nimrod Lens speaks volumes. Unlike Greek fire or the Seismoscope, there's no historical mention of its use, no trail of similar artifacts. It stands alone, a solitary clue to a path not taken. Perhaps that's the real lesson here. Progress isn't inevitable. A single invention, no matter how brilliant, can vanish without the right conditions, support, curiosity, or simply the freedom to explore. The Nimrod Lens didn't fail. The world around it did, and that's a warning that echoes far beyond ancient Assyria. Digging through the soil of Roman ruins across Europe, archaeologists keep finding the same bizarre object, a hollow bronze dodecahedron, its 12 pentagonal faces studded with circular holes of varying sizes. These palm-sized artifacts, dating back to the 2nd or 3rd century, are exquisitely crafted, their surfaces often adorned with intricate knobs at each corner. Yet despite hundreds of them unearthed from Britain to Hungary, not a single Roman text, sketch, or inventory mentions their purpose. They appear without context, vanish without explanation, and defy every modern attempt to categorize them. How could such precise, widespread objects leave no paper trail? And why did a civilization famous for documenting everything from plumbing to politics leave us zero clues about something they clearly valued? The theories are as varied as they are fascinating. Some researchers propose these dodecahedrons were sophisticated measuring devices, perhaps astronomical tools to calculate planting dates based on sunlight angles, with each hole filtering light differently during solstices. Others suggest they were knitting aids, the knobs guiding yarn to create complex gloves or textiles. There's even a hypothesis that they functioned as geodesic dice for gambling, their unbalanced weight distribution making rolls unpredictable. But here's the catch: none of these explanations fully account for their uniformity. If they were knitting tools, why are they found in military camps far from textile workshops? If they were calendars, why no markings to indicate seasons or months? The most compelling theories touch on secrecy. The Roman world thrived on trade networks and specialized guilds where craftsmen guarded their techniques fiercely. Imagine a dodecahedron as a proprietary device, say, a mason's gauge for measuring pipe angles in aqueducts, or a surveyor's tool for plotting land divisions. Its purpose would have been common knowledge to a select few, irrelevant to everyone else. When those trades declined or guilds dissolved, the knowledge could have evaporated overnight. Alternatively, consider their spiritual role. Roman soldiers stationed at empire's edge often blended local beliefs with their own. A dodecahedron might have been a portable shrine, its geometric perfection symbolizing cosmic harmony, its holes meant to hold incense or sacred oils. What's haunting is their abrupt disappearance. By the 4th century, no new dodecahedrons were being made, and no medieval artifacts resemble them. Unlike Greek fire or the Baghdad Battery, there's no evidence they were suppressed, just forgotten. Perhaps their function became obsolete like floppy disks in the digital age, or maybe their makers belonged to a niche, a cult, a profession, a family line that vanished without passing on the secret. The dodecahedrons didn't fail. The world around them simply moved on, leaving behind these mute bronze puzzles as a reminder that even the most widespread technology can slip through history's cracks. And so they sit in museum cases polished by time, their true purpose locked away. They challenge our assumption that the past is knowable, that every artifact has a label waiting to be found. Some inventions don't just fade, they retreat, deliberately or not, into the shadows. The dodecahedrons whisper an uncomfortable truth: not all mysteries are meant to be solved. The Sakara Bird doesn't look like much at first glance, just a delicate wooden carving, barely 7 inches long, tucked away in the Cairo Museum's collection. But take a closer look and something strange emerges. Its wings aren't flat like traditional bird carvings. They're angled downward with a distinct curvature that mirrors the aerofoil shape of modern aircraft wings. The tail, too, is all wrong for a bird, vertical like a rudder, not horizontal for balance. Discovered in 1898 in a tomb near Saqqara, this 2,000-year-old artifact has sparked a debate that cuts to the heart of ancient innovation. Was this merely a child's toy, or evidence that the Egyptians understood principles of flight centuries before Da Vinci sketched his flying machines? When engineers reconstructed the Sakara Bird in the 1960s, they made a startling discovery. When launched like a glider, the model didn't just tumble, it soared. The wing design generated enough lift to carry it through the air with surprising stability, something no other bird-shaped artifact from the period has ever done. Aerodynamics experts have pointed out that the curvature of the wings matches the same principles used in early 20th century aircraft, suggesting whoever carved this object wasn't just mimicking nature. They were studying it, perhaps even experimenting with it, but if this was more than art, why is there no record of full-scale attempts? No murals of flying contraptions, no legends of human flight beyond the symbolic. The silence might be deliberate. Ancient Egypt was a society built on divine order, where the pharaoh's authority was tied to his role as the sole intermediary between gods and mortals. Imagine the threat posed by a technology that could literally lift humans toward the realm of the gods. Flight wouldn't just be revolutionary, it would be sacrilegious. Some researchers speculate that early experiments, if they existed, were swiftly suppressed by a priesthood determined to maintain cosmic hierarchy. Others argue the Sakara Bird was a one-off, the product of a lone artisan's curiosity, never meant to be scaled up. But there's another, darker possibility. What if the knowledge was pursued and lost? The Library of Alexandria, burned to the ground, held countless scrolls on engineering and mathematics. Could the Sakara Bird be a surviving fragment of a broader tradition, one that vanished in the smoke of war and time? Without context, it's impossible to say. And that's the real tragedy. The bird doesn't just hint at flight. It hints at roads not taken, at ideas snuffed out before they could take wing. Today, the Sakara Bird sits in quiet defiance, its smooth wood polished by centuries of hands. It doesn't explain itself. It simply is a whisper from a past that might have been far more audacious than we've ever dared to imagine. And that's the most unsettling question of all. How many other whispers have we missed? In 1961, a trio of rockhounds cracking open geodes in California's KOSO Mountains made a discovery that still sends shivers down the spines of archaeologists. Inside what should have been an ordinary 500,000-year-old lump of hardened clay and minerals, their saw blades struck something impossible, a threaded metal cylinder encased in a ceramic shell with a rusted copper core. When cleaned, the object bore an uncanny resemblance to a 20th century spark plug. But here's the catch: this geode hadn't formed yesterday. By all geological estimates, it had sealed shut during the Pleistocene epoch, a time when early humans were barely mastering fire. So how did a piece of advanced machinery end up entombed in prehistoric stone? The so-called KOSO artifact shouldn't exist. Experts who have examined it confirm the outer mineral layer shows no signs of modern tampering, meaning whatever's inside was trapped there naturally millennia ago. The internal components, a porcelain-like sleeve surrounding a magnetic metal rod, mirror the design of early 1900s spark plugs, right down to the hexagonal base. Skeptics argue it must be a mining tool or mechanical debris from the 1800s, somehow embedded in the geode through some freak geological process. But here's the problem: no known mining equipment from that era matches this design, and the materials used, particularly the advanced ceramic, weren't manufactured until the 20th century. Then there's the deeper mystery. If this is a spark plug, what was it powering? Conventional history tells us internal combustion engines didn't emerge until the late 19th century. Yet the KOSO artifact's encasement suggests it was buried long before then. Could it be evidence of a forgotten industrial civilization, one that rose and fell in prehistory? Ancient astronaut theorists point to similar anomalies like the 2,000-year-old Baghdad Battery or the Antikythera Mechanism as proof that advanced technology cyclically appears and vanishes. But mainstream science balks at such claims, insisting there must be a mundane explanation, even if it hasn't been found yet. Perhaps the most unsettling possibility isn't that the artifact was lost, but that it was hidden. Imagine a society that stumbled upon electricity or engine technology too soon, destabilizing its own power structures. Would rulers suppress such knowledge to maintain control? We've seen it before. Greek fire's formula was so closely guarded it disappeared entirely. The KOSO artifact might represent another casualty of that same pattern, an invention so disruptive it was buried, literally and figuratively, to prevent chaos. Today, the artifact itself has vanished from public view, its whereabouts unknown after decades of private ownership and disputed testing. That absence speaks volumes. Whether it's a misunderstood relic or proof of impossible technology, one thing is clear: some discoveries don't just challenge history, they threaten to rewrite it entirely. And that's a story certain people might prefer stays buried. Rising 23 feet above the grounds of Delhi's Qutub complex, the Iron Pillar stands as a silent sentinel of ancient metallurgical mastery. For over 1,600 years, this solid iron column has defied the laws of chemistry, refusing to rust despite monsoons, pollution, and the passage of centuries. Modern scientists have analyzed its composition, revealing a near-pure iron content with traces of phosphorus, a formula that creates a thin, protective film against corrosion. Yet here's the baffling part: this technology didn't spread. No other structures from its era share this resilience, and the knowledge to replicate it vanished as suddenly as it appeared. So why was such a revolutionary breakthrough left to stand alone, like a single torch in the darkness of forgotten innovation? The pillar's secrets go deeper than its rust resistance. Its very construction is a marvel forged in a single, massive piece during the Gupta Empire around the year 400, a time when most of the world was still smelting iron in small, brittle batches. The precision required to create such a pure, durable column suggests a level of metallurgical understanding that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. European ironworkers, for example, wouldn't achieve comparable quality until the Industrial Revolution, but the Gupta craftsmen didn't just stop at durability. They engineered the pillar with symbolic perfection, its proportions aligning with sacred geometry, its surface inscribed with verses praising a king's victories. This wasn't just metalworking, it was alchemy fused with art. So why did this knowledge disappear? One theory points to the collapse of the Gupta Empire itself. As political chaos engulfed the region, the guilds or families who guarded these techniques might have been scattered, their expertise dying with them. But there's a darker possibility: suppression. Iron was power in the ancient world, the key to weapons, tools, and infrastructure. A method this advanced could have destabilized entire economies if it fell into rival hands. Imagine a world where bridges, ships, and fortifications never corroded, where military equipment lasted generations. The societal upheaval would have been immense. Rulers might have seen this not as progress but as a threat. The pillar's isolation raises an even more unsettling question. What if it wasn't unique? What if other structures like it once existed but were melted down or destroyed over time? The fact that this one survived, protected first by Hindu temples, later by Muslim rulers, could be pure chance. The real tragedy isn't just that the technology was lost, it's that we'll never know how much further it could have gone. Today, the iron pillar stands as both a monument and a riddle. Visitors circle it, pressing their backs against the metal in a local tradition, testing its legendary smoothness. But beneath that polished surface lies a story we're still deciphering, one that challenges our assumptions about ancient ingenuity and the fragile threads that connect innovation to survival. Some secrets don't just fade away, they wait, patient as iron, for the right moment to be rediscovered. Hidden high in the mountains of China's Bayan Karaula region, a series of perfectly circular stone discs whisper a story that defies conventional history. Known as the Dropa Stones, these peculiar artifacts, each roughly 12 inches in diameter with a hole at the center, are etched with spiral grooves so fine they resemble microscopic hieroglyphs. When examined closely, the grooves reveal themselves as lines of tiny, unknown characters, spiraling inward like a cosmic record waiting to be played. But it's not just their design that unsettles archaeologists, it's the story they allegedly tell. According to a controversial translation from the 1960s, these stones chronicle the crash landing of an otherworldly spacecraft 12,000 years ago and the stranded beings who interacted with local tribes. Whether fact or fabrication, one thing is clear: the Dropa stones have been met with skepticism, secrecy, and a reluctance to investigate further. Why would such a discovery be dismissed so quickly? And what does that tell us about how we handle truths that disrupt our understanding of the past? The stones first came to light in 1938, when a Chinese archaeologist named Kai Pu-Te reportedly discovered them in a network of caves alongside skeletal remains with unusually large skulls and slender bodies, features that fueled speculation about extraterrestrial visitors. But the real bombshell came decades later when Dr. Tsum Nui claimed to have deciphered the inscriptions. His translation described a race called the Dropa, who descended from the clouds in crippled ships, unable to return home. The local Ham people, initially hostile, eventually befriended these strangers according to the text. Yet when Dr. Nui attempted to publish his findings, he faced immediate backlash. Academic journals refused to print his work, and authorities allegedly confiscated the stones. By the time journalists and researchers sought to verify the claims in the 70s, the artifacts had vanished into bureaucratic obscurity. Skeptics argue the entire story is an elaborate hoax, pointing to the lack of verifiable records or photographs of the original excavation. The few stones that surfaced in later years, they say, are likely Neolithic ritual objects or agricultural tools misidentified by overeager UFO enthusiasts. But even if the extraterrestrial narrative is pure fiction, the stones themselves raise legitimate questions. Their spiral inscriptions, if not alien in origin, depict a writing system unlike any known ancient Chinese script. The precision of the grooves, carved with tools seemingly too advanced for the era, suggests a level of craftsmanship that doesn't align with mainstream timelines of technological development. The deeper intrigue lies in the reaction to the stones. Whether the Dropa story is true or not, the swift suppression of research hints at a broader pattern: humanity's discomfort with anomalies that challenge established narratives. Imagine if these discs were evidence of prehistoric contact with advanced beings. Such a revelation wouldn't just rewrite history, it would dismantle the foundations of religion, science, and cultural identity. In that light, it's no surprise that authorities might prefer such artifacts to disappear into silence. Today, the Dropa stones linger in the fog between myth and reality. A handful of alleged fragments reside in private collections, their inscriptions still untranslated, their origins unverified. They serve as a reminder that some discoveries don't just threaten our ignorance, they threaten our certainty. And in a world built on the stories we tell ourselves, certainty is often the most guarded treasure of all. In the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, one of the world's oldest planned cities, archaeologists uncovered something that shouldn't exist. Scattered across the ancient streets were layers of fused green glass, as if the very ground had been flash melted in an instant. These strange, vitrified fragments, dating back over 4,000 years, mirror the effects of extreme heat, the kind generated by modern nuclear explosions or meteor impacts. But here's the catch: there's no evidence of volcanic activity in the region, no crater from a celestial impact, and no natural explanation for temperatures high enough to turn solid clay into glass. So what could have caused this, and why does the answer feel like a warning from the distant past? The mystery deepens when you consider the context. Mohenjo-Daro was a marvel of the Indus Valley civilization, a sprawling metropolis with advanced drainage systems, uniform brick construction, and a level of urban planning unmatched for its time. Yet in certain areas, the city's orderly grid gives way to chaos: piles of debris, skeletal remains clustered in unnatural positions, and those eerie glassy patches. Some researchers speculate these could be the remnants of an ancient energy source, perhaps a volatile technology lost to time. The Mahabharata, an ancient Indian epic, describes weapons of unimaginable power, blazing arrows, that could reduce cities to ash and leave survivors with hair and nails falling out, symptoms chillingly similar to radiation poisoning. Could these texts be fragmented memories of real events? Skeptics argue the vitrification might stem from mundane causes, like concentrated fires from burning oil stores or smelting operations gone wrong. But that doesn't explain the sheer intensity required to fuse materials at ground level without leaving charcoal or soot behind. Experiments show that creating such glass would require temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, far beyond what ordinary combustion could achieve. Even more puzzling is the localized nature of the effect. If this was accidental, why isn't the entire city scarred by similar damage? The most unsettling theory suggests deliberate destruction. Imagine a civilization that harnessed energy in ways we've yet to rediscover, a power source so potent it could be weaponized, and so dangerous its misuse led to catastrophe. If such knowledge existed, its disappearance wouldn't be an accident. It would be a necessity. Ancient societies weren't strangers to suppressing dangerous innovations. We've seen it with Greek fire and the Baghdad Battery. But the scale of Mohenjo-Daro's scars hints at something even more volatile. Today, the glassy fragments sit quietly in museum cases, their origins debated, their secrets intact. They don't just challenge our timeline of technological progress, they force us to confront an uncomfortable possibility. Perhaps some inventions aren't merely lost. Perhaps they're buried for a reason, because history isn't just shaped by what we remember, it's shaped by what we're forced to forget. Deep in the jungles of Colombia, nestled among gold artifacts from the Quimbaya civilization, lie dozens of tiny figurines that seem to defy history. Crafted between 1000 and 1500 years ago, these intricate golden objects bear an uncanny resemblance to modern fighter jets. Sleek delta wings, upright tail fins, even what appear to be cockpit canopies. To the untrained eye, they could pass for miniature models of 20th century aircraft. But that's impossible, isn't it? The controversy surrounding the Quimbaya artifacts isn't just about their shape, it's about what they might reveal about a culture that supposedly never left the ground. When engineers and aerodynamics experts examined these figurines, they made a startling observation. The proportions of the wings and fuselage aren't just decorative. They align with principles of aerodynamics that humanity wouldn't formally discover until the age of wind tunnels and computational fluid dynamics. In the 1990s, a team even built scaled-up replicas, outfitted them with propellers, and launched them into flight. The result, the models soared with remarkable stability, their design generating lift in ways that simple bird or insect motifs never could. If these were merely symbolic objects, why would they function so flawlessly as aircraft? Yet mainstream archaeologists push back fiercely. They argue the figurines likely depict stylized birds, fish, or even hallucinogenic visions from shamanic rituals. After all, the Quimbaya were master goldsmiths known for abstract artistry. But here's the counterpoint. No other Quimbaya animal carvings share these specific features: no beaks, no scales, no eyes. The so-called airplanes stand alone in their precision, their geometric symmetry feeling more engineered than artistic. Even more telling, similar artifacts have been found across Central and South America, all sharing that same jet-like silhouette. Could this be evidence of a shared cultural memory, a lingering echo of something far more advanced? The darkest twist in this mystery isn't just about whether ancient civilizations flew, it's about why we're so resistant to the idea. For centuries, Western academia has dismissed indigenous knowledge as primitive, relegating artifacts like these to the realm of myth or coincidence. But what if we've been wrong? The Quimbaya weren't isolated. They were part of vast trade networks, exchanging goods and ideas across continents. If even a fraction of their airplanes were based on real technology, it would mean our timeline of human innovation isn't just incomplete, it's arrogant. Today, the figurines sit in museum cases labeled as zoomorphic to avoid controversy. But every now and then, a visitor stops, tilts their head, and wonders. The truth might not be written in gold. It might be hovering just beyond our grasp, waiting for the day we're ready to see it. Tucked away in the Topkapi Palace Museum in Istanbul lies a fragment of parchment that shouldn't make sense: the Piri Reis Map. Drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, this weathered document shows coastlines with impossible precision, including the most baffling detail of all: the outline of Antarctica. Not the ice-covered continent we know today, but the landmass beneath the ice, a shape that wouldn't be officially mapped until 20th century sonar technology penetrated the frozen shell. How could a 16th century navigator chart a continent that wouldn't be discovered for another 300 years? And why does this map hint at knowledge that defies everything we think we know about ancient exploration? The map's secrets don't stop at Antarctica. Piri Reis himself wrote that he compiled it from older sources, including charts dating back to Alexander the Great's era. Some of these referenced the southern lands, describing climates and creatures that align eerily with what we now know about prehistoric Antarctica, a time when it was free of ice. Even more startling, the map accurately plots longitudes, a feat Europeans wouldn't achieve until the invention of the marine chronometer in the 1700s. The implications are staggering. Someone, long before the age of exploration, had circumnavigated the globe with tools advanced enough to measure distances east to west with near-perfect accuracy. But here's where the mystery twists. If this knowledge existed, why wasn't it common? Why didn't it spark a global rush to explore these lands? The answer might lie in the fragility of ancient information networks. Piri Reis's sources could have been fragments of a much older tradition, perhaps maps from the Library of Alexandria or records kept by Phoenician sailors, whose voyages were legendary but left few traces. Knowledge this valuable wouldn't have been public. It would have been guarded by kings, traders, or scholars who understood its power. When empires fell, their archives often burned with them. The Piri Reis map also raises a darker question. Could this accuracy be a fluke? Skeptics argue that the Antarctica on the map might just be a distorted South America or an artist's guess at unknown southern lands. Yet the coastline's contours match modern scans of the subglacial continent too closely to dismiss outright. Even the placement of mountain ranges aligns with seismic surveys. If it's a coincidence, it's one that stretches credibility to the breaking point. What's most haunting isn't the map itself, it's what's missing. Piri Reis hinted at other, now lost sources, charts that might have held even more startling details. Were there other maps, other explorers who knew the world in ways we've forgotten? The silence of history is deafening. The Piri Reis map isn't just a relic. It's a whisper from a time when the boundaries of human knowledge might have been far wider than we've ever dared to imagine. And that's a thought that should unsettle anyone who thinks the past is set in stone. Digging through the ruins of Ubaid, an ancient Mesopotamian culture predating even the Sumerians, archaeologists uncovered something that defies easy explanation: dozens of intricately carved statues depicting humanoid figures with unmistakably reptilian features. These eerie artifacts, dating back over 7,000 years, show slender, elongated bodies with lizard-like heads, almond-shaped eyes, and shoulders that slope in ways no human anatomy would allow. Some cradle infants against their scaled chests. Others strike poses that seem almost ritualistic, their long fingers curled around objects lost to time. At first glance, they might pass for symbolic art, perhaps representations of gods or spirits, but the consistency in their design raises a chilling question. Why would an entire civilization repeatedly depict the same otherworldly beings unless they were drawing from real-life inspiration? The mystery deepens when you consider the context. The Ubaid culture was remarkably advanced for its era, mastering irrigation, architecture, and trade networks that stretched across the Near East. Yet these statues stand apart from their other artwork, which includes more conventional human and animal figures. The reptilian carvings aren't crude or abstract, they're detailed, almost clinical in their precision. Some even wear what appear to be helmets or shoulder padding, hinting at attire far more complex than the simple garments of the period. Could these be imaginative renderings of deities, or is there a chance they record something more tangible, a race of beings now lost to history that once walked among humans? Mainstream archaeology leans toward symbolism, suggesting the figures represent water deities tied to the life-giving Tigris and Euphrates rivers, reptiles being common symbols of fertility and renewal in ancient cultures. But that explanation doesn't account for the statue's unsettling uniformity. Unlike the varied depictions of gods in later Sumerian art, the Ubaid lizardmen are eerily consistent, as if artists were working from a shared reference. Even more perplexing are the postures. Many statues recline in poses that mimic modern relaxation, with one arm propped behind the head, a stance no other contemporary human figures adopt. It's as if the carvers were trying to capture a culture with customs alien to their own. Then there's the darker theory. What if these weren't gods or symbols at all, but memories? Ancient astronaut theorists point to similar reptilian figures in global mythologies, from the serpent-headed Naga of Hindu tradition to the dragon kings of Chinese lore, as evidence of a shared ancestral encounter. Could the Ubaid statues be remnants of a forgotten interaction with an advanced species, one that influenced early human civilization before vanishing? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Modern science confirms that reptilian humanoids couldn't exist naturally, but what if the figures were stylized representations of beings wearing advanced suits or masks? Artifacts like the Sakara Bird and Quimbaya airplanes prove ancient cultures sometimes depicted technology in ways we're only beginning to decipher. The silence surrounding these statues speaks volumes. Unlike other Ubaid artifacts, which show clear evolution in style over time, the lizardmen appear suddenly and vanish just as abruptly, leaving no trace in later Mesopotamian art. Were they suppressed? Did the knowledge they represented become taboo, or was it simply forgotten? Today, the statues sit in museum cases, their smooth surfaces worn by millennia, their secrets locked behind those hollow, slitted eyes. They don't just challenge our understanding of ancient art, they force us to confront the unsettling possibility that some truths aren't lost to time. They're hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to see them for what they really are. Stretching across the arid plains of Peru's Nazca Desert, a series of colossal drawings etched into the earth defy logic and time. These aren't just simple sketches, they're sprawling geoglyphs, some stretching over 1,000 feet, depicting spiders, hummingbirds, monkeys, and geometric shapes so precise they could have been drafted with modern tools. But here's what stops historians in their tracks. These lines are virtually invisible from the ground. To fully appreciate their scale and intricacy, you'd need to be hundreds of feet in the air. So how did the Nazca people, who thrived between 200 BCE and 600 CE, create these mammoth designs without ever seeing their work from above? And why would they invest such effort into art they couldn't fully witness? The precision of the Nazca Lines is nothing short of breathtaking. Using nothing more than rudimentary tools, the creators removed the dark, iron-rich topsoil to reveal the lighter sand beneath, carving lines that remain sharp and clear after 2,000 years of wind and erosion. Some of these lines run perfectly straight for miles, deviating by no more than a few feet over their entire length, a feat that would challenge modern surveyors even with GPS technology. The curves of the animal figures are equally flawless, their proportions mathematically consistent, as if scaled up from smaller models with uncanny accuracy. This level of precision suggests the Nazca possessed sophisticated knowledge of geometry and spatial planning, techniques that shouldn't have existed in a culture without written language or the wheel. But the real enigma isn't just how they were made, it's why. Mainstream theories range from astronomical calendars to ritual pathways for religious processions. Some researchers propose the lines pointed to water sources, vital in one of the driest places on Earth. Others argue they were offerings to gods meant to be seen from the heavens. Yet none of these explanations fully account for the sheer variety and complexity of the designs. Why would a water-starved society spend generations carving whimsical monkeys and whales into the desert instead of focusing solely on practical markers? The most tantalizing theory revolves around the concept of ancient flight. Could the Nazca have had access to primitive balloons or gliders, allowing them to view their work from above? Experiments in the 1970s showed it was possible to construct a functional hot air balloon using materials available to the Nazca, and local legends speak of flying men who surveyed the land. If true, this would rewrite our understanding of pre-Columbian technology. But even if they could fly, why dedicate such resources to these ephemeral designs? Perhaps the answer lies in what we're missing. Unlike the pyramids or Stonehenge, the Nazca Lines leave no physical trace of their creators' tools or methods. No blueprints, no scaffolding, no records, just the lines themselves, silent and stubborn. Their purpose might not be locked in the past, but hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to see them from the right angle. After all, some messages aren't meant to be read from the ground. They're meant to be seen by those who dare to look from higher up, and that's the haunting beauty of the Nazca Lines. They don't just challenge our assumptions about ancient technology, they challenge our very perspective. In a world where we're used to viewing history through the lens of what's directly in front of us, these desert drawings force us to lift our gaze. Because sometimes the most profound truths aren't found at eye level. They're written in the earth itself, waiting for the sky to reveal them. For centuries, the Great Pyramid of Giza has stood as the ultimate symbol of ancient mystery, a monument so precise, so mathematically perfect, that it defies the technological limitations of its era. But what if its greatest secrets aren't in its towering stones or hidden shafts, but in the spaces we've only just begun to detect? In 2017, scientists using advanced muon tomography made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. Massive, previously unknown voids hidden deep within the pyramid's core. One, dubbed the Big Void, stretches nearly 100 feet long, hovering ominously above the Grand Gallery. Another, a smaller but equally enigmatic space, lurks near the pyramid's north face. These aren't accidental gaps or structural quirks. They're deliberate, sealed chambers, untouched for over 4,000 years. And the question burning in every researcher's mind is simple: what or who were they meant to protect? The scale of these voids alone is staggering. The Big Void's dimensions rival those of the pyramid's known chambers, like the King's and Queen's chambers, yet there's no visible entrance, no corridor leading to it. It's as if the builders went to extraordinary lengths to ensure whatever lies inside would never be found. Some engineers argue these spaces could be structural, relieving pressure from the pyramid's immense weight. But that explanation falls short when you consider the precision of every other aspect of the pyramid's design. This is a structure aligned to true north with near-perfect accuracy, its sides matching the cardinal directions with a margin of error smaller than a modern football field. Would architects this meticulous leave hollow spaces without a purpose? Then there's the tantalizing possibility of suppressed knowledge. Ancient Egyptian texts speak of the Shemsu Hor, the followers of Horus, a shadowy group said to possess divine wisdom passed down from a golden age. Could these voids hold their legacy: advanced tools, astronomical devices, or even energy systems deemed too dangerous for the uninitiated? The pyramid's very design hints at capabilities we're only now rediscovering. Its interior shafts align with celestial bodies like Orion's belt, and some researchers suggest its structure might have once harnessed acoustic or electromagnetic energy. If such technologies existed, sealing them away wouldn't just be practical, it would be a matter of survival. Imagine a priesthood guarding the secrets of resonance or wireless power, knowing their misuse could topple dynasties. But here's the chilling counterpoint: we may never find out. Egyptian authorities have been notoriously reluctant to allow invasive exploration of the voids, citing preservation concerns. Skeptics argue this caution is justified, pointing to damage caused by past expeditions, like the botched drilling of the so-called door in the pyramid shafts in 2002. Yet others whisper about darker motives. What if the truth behind these chambers isn't just inconvenient to history, but to modern power structures? The pyramid has always been more than a tomb. It's a cipher, a challenge to our understanding of human progress. And its deepest secrets might still be locked away, not by stone, but by design. What's haunting isn't just the mystery of the voids, it's the silence around them. For a civilization that documented everything from tax records to the afterlife, the pyramid's builders left no blueprints, no explanations. That absence feels deliberate, as if the greatest lesson of the pyramid isn't in what it reveals, but in what it refuses to say. Some knowledge, it seems, wasn't meant to be written down. It was meant to be hidden in plain sight, waiting for a time when we're ready to understand it. And if that's true, the real question isn't what's inside the voids. It's whether we'll ever be prepared to face it. Standing like silent sentinels in the humid jungles of Mexico, the Olmec colossal heads defy everything we thought we knew about ancient history. Carved from single blocks of volcanic basalt, some weighing over 20 tons, these massive sculptures depict faces with unmistakably African features: broad noses, full lips, and strong jawlines that bear no resemblance to the indigenous peoples of Mesoamerica. Dating back to around 900 BCE, these heads predate the Maya by centuries and raise a question that still unsettles mainstream archaeology. How could a civilization in the Americas have such precise knowledge of facial features from a continent thousands of miles away, across an ocean supposedly uncrossed at the time? The mystery isn't just in their appearance, it's in their execution. Each head is unique, adorned with individualized headgear resembling helmets or caps, suggesting these were portraits of real people, not mythical figures. The basalt itself was quarried from mountains over 50 miles away, meaning the Olmec somehow transported these monolithic slabs through swamps and jungles without wheels, pack animals, or metal tools. The precision of the carvings is equally baffling. With no known prototypes or smaller-scale models, it's as if the Olmec sculptors went straight to working on these giant stones with flawless confidence, as if they'd been doing it for generations. But the real controversy lies in the implications. If these heads truly represent Africans or people of African descent, it would mean transoceanic contact occurred millennia before Columbus, an idea that challenges the foundations of modern historiography. Mainstream scholars often dismiss the notion, arguing the features could be stylistic or coincidental. Yet the sheer consistency across all 17 known heads makes that hard to swallow. Why would the Olmec repeatedly carve these specific traits unless they were depicting individuals they'd actually encountered? The silence around these heads is just as telling. Early 20th century archaeologists, steeped in Eurocentric views of history, often downplayed or ignored the African connection, attributing the features to infantile artistic expression or imaginative exaggeration. Even today, museum plaques rarely mention the possibility of pre-Columbian African contact, framing the heads as enigmatic but culturally isolated. This reluctance speaks to a deeper issue. History isn't just about facts, it's about who gets to write them. What if the Olmec weren't just sculpting faces, but recording a truth too inconvenient for later narratives? ancient maritime technology might have been far more advanced than we've credited. The Phoenicians, for instance, were known to have sailed beyond the Mediterranean, and West African kingdoms like Mali reportedly sent expeditions across the Atlantic. Could the Olmec heads be evidence of such voyages, or even of an African presence in the Americas that's been scrubbed from the record? The heads don't just stare out from the past, they accuse. They force us to confront the gaps in our understanding, the biases in our textbooks, and the possibility that history's greatest journeys weren't the ones we've been taught. Some discoveries don't just rewrite the past, they demand we question why we ever believed the story in the first place. Scattered across the jungles and riverbeds of Costa Rica, hundreds of perfectly spherical stone balls stop explorers in their tracks. Ranging from a few inches to over 6 feet in diameter, some weighing as much as 16 tons, these enigmatic artifacts seem almost alien in their precision, their surfaces so smooth, their curves so flawless they appear machine-made. Yet carbon dating places their creation between 600 and 1500 CE, crafted by a pre-Columbian civilization using nothing but stone tools and raw human ingenuity. The mystery isn't just how they were made, but why. Why would a culture without written language or the wheel invest such staggering effort into creating objects that serve no obvious practical purpose? The craftsmanship alone defies belief. Using only hammerstones and abrasives, indigenous artisans shaped granite and other hard rocks into near-perfect spheres, with deviations of less than 2 millimeters across their entire surface. Modern engineers have calculated that achieving this level of precision without metal tools or measuring devices would require not just skill, but an almost obsessive understanding of geometry and physics. Some spheres even align with celestial events, suggesting they might have functioned as astronomical markers or calendars. But here's the twist: they're rarely found in organized patterns. Instead, they're strewn across the landscape, often half-buried or rolled into ravines, as if deliberately scattered. Local legends offer cryptic clues. The Boruca people speak of the balls as remnants of a lost city called Ciudad Blanca, where a god hurled them to earth to ward off invaders. Others claim they were gifts from the Diquis, the vanished culture believed to have crafted them, though their true name is lost to time. The most unsettling theory, that the spheres were part of an energy grid, their placement channeling unseen forces across the land. Experiments with replicas have shown certain arrangements resonate at frequencies that affect nearby compasses, an effect modern science can't fully explain. What's haunting is how little remains of the people who made them. Unlike the pyramids or Nazca Lines, the spheres have no carvings, no inscriptions, no clear cultural context. When banana plantations expanded in the 1930s, bulldozers shoved many aside like debris, destroying potential archaeological clues. Today, fewer than a third of the original spheres survive intact. Their silence feels deliberate, as if the Diquis wanted their purpose to fade with them. Perhaps the real lesson of the stone spheres isn't in their perfection, but in their impermanence. They remind us that even the most advanced creations can be reduced to curiosities, their meanings erased by time. Some mysteries aren't puzzles to solve, they're mirrors reflecting back our own limits. And sometimes the most profound artifacts are the ones that refuse to speak. In a quiet corner of Romania's National History Museum, a collection of clay tablets sits under glass, their surfaces etched with symbols that refuse to fit into any known timeline. Known as the Tartaria Tablets, these palm-sized artifacts date back over 7,000 years, centuries older than the earliest Sumerian cuneiform or Egyptian hieroglyphs. Yet the markings aren't primitive scratches. They're deliberate, organized, arranged in rows and grids that suggest a system, not random doodles. Some symbols resemble livestock or crops. Others are abstract zigzags, circles, and spirals that hint at something far more complex than simple tally marks. The question isn't just what they say, it's why they feel so eerily out of place in the story of human communication. What makes these tablets so unsettling is their isolation. Unlike the gradual evolution of writing in Mesopotamia, where pictographs slowly standardized into cuneiform, the Tartaria symbols appear fully formed, as if dropped into history from nowhere. Even more perplexing, they were found alongside burnt bones and ritual objects, buried in a way that suggests they weren't just record-keeping tools, they were sacred. Some researchers argue they're proto-writing, an early attempt to encode language that died with its creators, but the symbol's precision and repetition hint at something more. A code, perhaps, or a device meant to transmit specific knowledge to initiates. Then there's the darker possibility that the script wasn't lost but erased. Around the time these tablets were created, Europe was undergoing a seismic cultural shift. The Vinca culture, to which the tablets are attributed, mysteriously declined, their settlements abandoned. Was this the result of invasion, climate change, or something more deliberate? Imagine a priesthood guarding a written system so powerful it threatened emerging power structures. In an era before widespread literacy, controlling symbols meant controlling reality. If these tablets held secrets, rituals, prophecies, or technologies, their suppression wouldn't just be likely. It would be inevitable. Modern attempts to decipher the symbols only deepen the intrigue. Some linguists claim overlaps with later scripts, like Cretan hieroglyphs or even Indus Valley symbols, suggesting a fragmented writing system that spanned continents. Others dismiss the parallels as coincidence, pointing out that basic shapes like lines and circles appear independently across cultures. But the sheer density of symbols on the tablets, some stacked like modern paragraphs, makes randomness hard to swallow. If this was just proto-writing, why does it feel so intentional? The silence surrounding the Tartaria tablets is as telling as the marks themselves. Unlike Rosetta Stones or Dead Sea Scrolls, there's no key, no bilingual text to unlock their meaning. They exist in a vacuum, a whisper of a language we'll never hear spoken. And that's what haunts us. Writing isn't just a tool, it's a revolution. Whoever held these tablets held power. And power, once gained, is rarely surrendered willingly. So the tablets sit, their secrets sealed not by clay, but by time's refusal to give up its ghosts. Some messages aren't meant to be read. They're meant to remind us how much we've forgotten. Beneath the rolling hills of China's Zhejiang province lies one of antiquity's most baffling engineering feats, the Longue Caves. Discovered in 1992 by a curious villager draining a local pond, this sprawling subterranean complex stretches over 30,000 square meters, its walls carved with such mathematical precision that modern engineers still struggle to explain how it was achieved. The scale alone is staggering: 24 hand-chiseled caverns, some reaching heights of nearly 100 feet, supported by towering pillars and adorned with uniform, parallel grooves that ripple across every surface like frozen waves. But what truly chills the spine is this: not a single historical record, tool fragment, or even oral tradition hints at who built them or why. The craftsmanship defies logic. Each groove on the walls is exactly 20 inches wide, their spacing so consistent that they appear machine-made, yet carbon dating places their creation over 2,000 years ago, a time when metal tools were rudimentary at best. The pillars, symmetrically placed to distribute the weight of the sandstone ceiling, align with celestial events, suggesting an understanding of astronomy far beyond what was thought possible for the era. Even more perplexing is the absence of debris. Where did the estimated 1 million cubic feet of excavated stone disappear to? nearby quarries show no trace, and no surrounding structures incorporate this volume of material. It's as if the caves were built in secret, their very existence scrubbed from memory. Local legends offer only cryptic clues. Elderly villagers speak of a mythical, underground world mentioned in passing by ancestors, but no detailed stories survive. The few Tang dynasty texts that reference the region describe it as uninhabited wilderness, with no mention of the labor or resources required for such a project. Some scholars propose the caves were imperial quarries, yet the decorative grooves and precise angles serve no practical mining purpose. Others suggest they were ceremonial spaces, but no artifacts or inscriptions have ever been found. The silence is deafening. The most unsettling theory revolves around suppression. Ancient China's dynasties were notorious for erasing inconvenient histories. Entire libraries burned, dissenting scholars buried alive. If the Longue Caves housed knowledge or technology deemed threatening, perhaps advanced acoustics, energy systems, or even a refuge for a persecuted group, their creators would have had every reason to vanish the evidence. Modern experiments reveal something eerie, strike certain walls, and they resonate at frequencies that mimic chanting, a feature seen in sacred sites worldwide. Were these caves designed to amplify sound for rituals we can no longer imagine? Today, the caves hum with unanswered questions. Unlike the pyramids or Easter Island statues, there's no trail of cultural evolution leading to their construction, no prototypes, no smaller-scale attempts. They emerge from the historical record fully formed, then vanish just as abruptly. The real enigma isn't just how they were built, but why their builders chose to bury their legacy so completely. Some achievements aren't merely lost to time. They're hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to question the stories we've been told about what our ancestors could or couldn't do. And sometimes the most profound mysteries aren't those we can solve, but those that force us to rethink the very boundaries of human ingenuity. High on the windswept plains of Bolivia's Sajama volcano, an ancient mystery stretches across the horizon, thousands of perfectly straight pathways, etched into the earth like the work of giants. These are the Sajama Lines, a sprawling network of over 16,000 paths covering nearly 9,000 square miles, their geometric precision so exact they rival modern engineering. Unlike the famous Nazca Lines, these aren't figurative drawings, they're a labyrinth of intersecting routes, some running dead straight for over 12 miles, cutting across rugged terrain with unwavering accuracy. But here's what defies explanation. Why would a pre-Columbian culture without the wheel or written language invest centuries carving paths that seem to lead nowhere? The scale alone is dizzying. Imagine roadways so vast they'd stretch from New York to Los Angeles if laid end to end, yet barely a foot wide in places, just deep enough to expose the lighter soil beneath the dark volcanic crust. Their patterns aren't random. They form grids, stars, and radial designs centered around sacred mountains, suggesting a purpose far beyond transportation. Some researchers believe they were pilgrimage routes, guiding worshippers to ceremonial sites. Others argue they functioned as a colossal astronomical calendar, their alignments marking solstices or celestial events. But the most tantalizing theory, that these lines were part of a forgotten navigation system, a terrestrial map so advanced it encoded distances, directions, and even hydrological data for travelers crossing the harsh Altiplano. What's haunting is the craftsmanship. Without drones or theodolites, the builders achieved near-flawless straightness, using nothing but wooden stakes and ropes. Experiments show that even slight miscalculations would have caused visible curves over such distances, yet the lines remain true, deflecting only for natural obstacles like hills. Even more puzzling, the paths often intersect at precise angles, forming equilateral triangles and perfect right angles, geometric knowledge not attributed to the region's indigenous Karangas people until centuries later. Did they inherit this technology from an older, lost civilization, or was this knowledge deliberately erased? The silence of history speaks volumes. Spanish chronicles from the colonial era make no mention of the lines, suggesting their purpose was already forgotten by the 16th century. Local Aymara legends whisper of the Cholpa, a race of giants who built the paths in a single night but offer no practical explanations. Modern archaeology struggles even to date them. Erosion and lack of organic material leave their origins shrouded in mystery. Unlike the Nazca Lines preserved by arid conditions, the Sajama Lines fade with each rainy season, their secrets crumbling back into the earth. Perhaps the most unsettling question isn't how they were made, but why they were abandoned. A network this vast would have required generations of maintenance, yet there's no evidence of repair or later use. Was this a technology too complex to sustain, or did its knowledge become forbidden? In a world where power was tied to control of trade and sacred sites, a universal navigation system might have been too dangerous to preserve. The lines don't just challenge our understanding of ancient innovation. They force us to confront how easily even the most brilliant ideas can vanish when the wrong people decide they shouldn't be remembered. Today, the Sajama Lines endure as ghostly traces, visible only from the air or at dawn when the low sun casts their shadows across the land. They're a reminder that some of history's greatest achievements aren't monuments or machines, but ideas written not in stone, but in the very soil beneath our feet. And sometimes the most profound messages are the ones we're still learning how to read. History has a cruel habit of burying its brightest sparks. The golden ages that birthed these astonishing devices, the Antikythera Mechanism under Greek skies, the Baghdad Battery in Mesopotamia's scholarly hubs, Jangheng's Seismoscope in Han China's imperial court, were moments when curiosity burned unchecked. But time and again, that flame was snuffed out, not by accident but by design. Consider the Library of Alexandria, that beacon of ancient knowledge, where scrolls detailing everything from steam-powered engines to advanced astronomy allegedly went up in flames. The loss wasn't just tragic, it was systematic. When Julius Caesar's troops set fire to the docks in 48 BCE, the blaze spread to the library's annex, consuming irreplaceable works. But the deeper truth, the library had already been dying for years, its funding slashed by rulers who saw free inquiry as a threat. This pattern isn't confined to antiquity. Look at the Islamic Golden Age, where scholars in Baghdad's House of Wisdom pioneered optics, chemistry, and medicine, only to see their work suppressed when conservative caliphs rose to power, declaring certain sciences against God's will. Or the Ming dynasty's sudden halt of oceanic exploration in the 15th century, when the emperor ordered Zheng his colossal treasure ships burned and their navigation charts destroyed. Overnight, China's maritime supremacy vanished, not because the technology failed, but because the court feared external influence would destabilize their rule. Knowledge in the wrong hands or too many hands became a liability. The mechanisms of suppression varied. Sometimes it was outright destruction, like the Spanish conquistadors melting down Inca and Aztec artifacts, erasing entire writing systems. Other times it was subtler, guilds monopolizing techniques, scribes encoding secrets in ciphers, or priests declaring certain inventions forbidden arts. The Roman Dodecahedrons, their purpose may have been kept secret not because it was mystical, but because it was mundane, a proprietary tool for military engineers or masons, its utility guarded like a trade secret. When those professions collapsed, the knowledge died with them. What's chilling is how often this cycle repeats. The Renaissance rediscovered ancient texts only for the Church to ban Copernicus's heliocentric model. The Industrial Revolution's Luddites smashed machinery not because they feared progress, but because they saw its cost, the concentration of power in the hands of a few. Even today, patents are hoarded, research is classified, and algorithms dictate what information surfaces. The players change, but the game remains the same. Control the tools and you control the future. Bury the past and you shape what's possible. The real question isn't why these devices disappeared. It's why we assume progress is inevitable. History isn't a straight line, it's a labyrinth, littered with dead ends and doors slammed shut. Every time a civilization collapses, a library burns, or a genius is silenced, the maze grows darker. These artifacts aren't just relics, they're flares shot into the night, reminding us how easily the light can fade. And that's the most unsettling lesson of all. The greatest threat to human ingenuity isn't ignorance. It's the deliberate choice to forget. These ancient inventions force us to rethink the entire arc of human progress. The Antikythera Mechanism spinning celestial predictions, the Baghdad Battery humming with forgotten power, the Longue Caves whispering in perfect acoustics, they weren't accidents. They were milestones on roads we stopped walking. What if our timeline is wrong? What if civilizations rise, fall, and leave behind only fragments too advanced for the eras that follow? Consider the eerie parallels across these devices. The precision engineering of the Nimrod Lens mirrors modern optics, yet it sat ignored for centuries. The Quimbaya airplane's aerodynamics rivaled 20th century jets, dismissed as stylized birds. The iron pillar's rust-defying alloy was never replicated, its formula lost to time. This isn't just coincidence, it's a pattern. Breakthroughs emerge, then vanish, not from lack of genius, but from suppression, catastrophe, or sheer disbelief. The deeper question isn't technological, it's psychological. Why do we resist evidence that contradicts our assumptions? When the Sakara Bird was tested as a glider and soared, why was the reaction muted skepticism rather than stunned curiosity? The answers lie in power. Knowledge has always been currency, and those who control it shape reality. Greek fire saved empires until its secret died with its keepers. The Piri Reis Map hinted at global exploration long before Columbus, yet its sources were erased. History isn't written by the victors, it's censored by them. Yet hope flickers in the gaps. Every decade, new discoveries chip away at the walls of conventional wisdom. Muon tomography reveals hidden chambers in the Great Pyramid. AI deciphers fragments of the Voinish Manuscript. Perhaps one day, we'll find the missing manual for the Antikithra Mechanism or unearth a workshop where Baghdad batteries were mass-produced. Until then, these artifacts stand as silent judges, challenging our arrogance. The choice is ours. Will we see them as curiosities or as warnings? Every invention here was buried twice, first in earth, then in disbelief. What are we burying today? Share your thoughts below, and if you're hungry for more mysteries, let us know which ancient enigma we should unravel next. The past isn't finished speaking. We just have to learn how to listen.